What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing new media. Now, Errol Spence Jr., he's one of the most talked about young welterweights. And the fact is, he's still paving his way. He hasn't even accomplished that much. If you think about it, his biggest name was Chris Algieri. But a lot of people, including Floyd Mayweather, the likes of Freddie Roach, they see the potential. Guys like Broner that have been in there and sparred with him, there's a lot of tales about what happened when they sparred. But it doesn't seem like a lot of people want to rump with Errol Spence Jr. At the moment, his name is not necessarily the biggest, and he's a high-level threat to any welterweight, even with the lack of pro-level names and experience. So it was just announced that the IBF has ordered a title eliminator for Kell Brook's belt. As you know, Brook is, I don't think they've been announced officially, but looks like he's fighting Jesse Vargas. And the winner of that fight, and I think Kell Brook should be the favorite, so we'll just keep it at Kell Brook since he's currently, at the time of this video, the champion, the IBF champion. So the IBF, they authorized and they requested a title fight, and as a title eliminator to see who is the mandatory for that belt. And initially, it was the top two guys on that list, which was Errol Spence Jr. and Konstantin Ponomariov. But it looks like Ponomariov and team have opted to go in a different direction, and they're not looking to fight Errol Spence Jr. right now at the moment. So by default, they have to go down the list to the next available name. That's how it works with the sanctioning bodies, and that person is Leonard Bundu. So 40 plus years old, an Olympian, an Italian. He's been in there most notably with Keith Thurman, and Keith Thurman even said post-fight, like, actually, let me break down the fight. I want to give you guys my thoughts. Errol Spence Jr. versus Leonard Bundu is a solid fight. It's not the fight that the fans, of course, fans want to see Danny Garcia or Adrian Broner versus Errol Spence or Keith Thurman, Porter Winner. That's fine and dandy. Pacquiao, any of those names, because they're all big names. But you got to look at it from a boxing perspective and what's realistic. The man has to earn his stripes to get in position to fight the Kell Brook Jesse Vargas winner, right? So, of course, he's going to fight anyone who stands in the way of that. And it would have been Ponomariov. Now, the funny thing is, and this is what I do with new media, I expose some of, like, what I notice that people do is they try to, there's certain fighters or certain sides of the fence that get hated on. Like, people hate Al Heyman for some reason. They said PBC and Heyman, they're the cancer of boxing. Al Heyman's putting on nothing but mismatches, man, right? And then you look at the card like this weekend. You got Ruslan Provodnikov, John Molina Jr., which is a solid fight. Both guys lack defense but have a lot of power. That's the main event. Then you got Willie Monroe, who just got stopped by Triple G. He's making a comeback on there. And also you have Demetrius Andrade versus Willie Nelson, which is a good fight. Andrade is very skilled, but he's been pretty inactive. And Willie Nelson has a lot of power. He trains out here. Shout out to my dude Willie. So that's a solid card. But then you look on the HBO, Felix Verdeo's fighting. I don't really even know who he's fighting. You know what I'm saying? And then Vasyl Lomachenko is moving up, but he's fighting Rocky Martinez, who I think should have lost to Salido in the rematch on the Mayweather-Berto undercard, right? So he shouldn't even technically be a title holder in my eyes, because I thought Salido got robbed in that fight versus Rocky Martinez. And Roman Martinez also lost to Mikey Garcia before he had that issue with Top Rank and stuff, and he was getting beat up on. So I expect Vasyl Lomachenko to thoroughly beat Rocky Martinez. So back to this whole mismatch. What I notice is the detractors, and they try to switch it on the fighter. Like, some people complain about this fight with Errol Spence Jr. They'll say, oh, why should he fight Keith Thurman's leftovers, Leonard Bundu? He's just going down the list. It could have been Konstantin Ponomariov, but it looks like their team didn't want the fight. And the reason I say that is because, I mean, what else reason was it? I talked to Errol Spence Jr. I have interviews with him on the channel, and he said he was down. So that's clearly not the issue. And Ponomariov is undefeated. He's with Top Rank, but they say Al Heyman is the only one that's putting on these mismatches. But why is Ponomariov? It's funny how a lot of what people say, it's oftentimes the opposite. And I'm not saying Ponomariov is scared, because they have their own reason for probably not wanting to fight Errol Spence Jr. Again, it's a big risk, and you don't want to damage a rising prospect and put him in there, and then he's never the same, if in fact that would happen when he fought Errol Spence Jr. So I at least respect Team Ponomariov. I met him in Denver too. Real cool kid. Him and his team are real great. But I respect them for bowing out gracefully and saying that's not in our immediate plans, because that's respectable, because you don't want to get an Antoine Douglas situation where you put your guy in there with somebody who, even though Errol Spence doesn't have the big names, he has a lot of experience at the amateur level. He's been to the Olympics. Any guy that's been to the Olympics is usually at least solid, you know what I mean, to even make it that far in the M's. And then we all see what Errol Spence did with Chris Algieri. So I respect Team Ponomarev if they didn't want to take the fight, because at least they're not putting on the front and putting on the show. They're just saying that's not in our media plans, and then they keep it pushing. Unlike, like, let's say Canelo. Canelo beat Cotto, got the belt, became the lineal middleweight champion, was talking about, oh, we could put the gloves on right now, carried the belt and held it hostage for 6 months, picked on a welterweight in Amir Khan, then struggled with him a little bit, knocked him out. After the fight, he said, oh, I invited Golovkin to the ring, and after you've been carrying this belt that Golovkin's been chasing down for 6 months to a year or whatever, and Canelo had it for 6 months, and then all of a sudden you vacate the belt. That's just kind of wasted everybody's time. So I respect the Ponomarev side for at least getting out of the way for other fights to be made while they develop their fighter. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some people, like, you know what I'm saying? Some people don't understand the business. I respect the business. But the Canelo Triple G situation is totally different, because you have Canelo who's like, oh, we Mexican, we don't fuck around, rah, 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 and we can put the gloves right back on. And you have Oscar De La Hoya saying the best fighting the best. That situation is completely different, only to have him vacate and possibly fight a guy like Liam Smith. The Team Ponomarev, he doesn't have the experience that Canelo has. He's young and he's still developing. So, you know what I mean? They may not be in a rush to put him in there. But it's funny how people will always oftentimes try to flip it on the person. Like, oh, why should Errol Spence fight Bundu? Like it's his options. They're doing the same thing with Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder went to Russia to fight his mandatory, and his mandatory came up with a dirty test. The fight got canceled, not by Wilder, but by the WBC and VADA, and the fight got scrapped and he headed home. So you look at some of the dumb fans and they're trying to make it like it's Wilder's problem. Like he's the one scared. Like he's ducking Povetkin, as if he stayed at home in Alabama, like shaking in his boots, like, ooh, I hope Alexander Povetkin fails his drug test so I don't have to go over to Russia, man. Like, that's just retarded. Doesn't even make sense. He was already in Russia ready to fight. He was in shape. He even put on some weight and stuff. He was clearly in shape, right? But now some of the fans try to flip it on Wilder. Oh, why should he fight Chris Arreola? What a cherry pick. Oh, he's ducking Povetkin. No, it doesn't work like that. New media. You can't say, someone's following protocol. You can't fault them because they went with the next order of operation. He's in shape and he wants to fight. You know what I'm saying? Period. And it could have been Povetkin, win, lose, or draw. But Povetkin failed a drug test. So you can't blame that on Wilder, no matter who. He could fight Pee Wee Herman. Hey, Dottie. Nah. Like, you know what I'm saying? He can fight whoever he wants at this point, because the only reason he's not fighting the guy you want him to fight is because he had meldonium in his system, which is a banned substance. Same thing with Errol Spence Jr. I don't want to hear anything about, oh, why should Earl fight Keith Thurman's leftovers, or LEONARD Bundu's not this and that. Hey, Ponomarev, he stepped aside, you know what I mean? So what is Errol Spence gonna do? Take himself out of the race because someone else didn't want to fight him? The other number 3 guy or whatever didn't want to fight him? Take himself out of the IBF race to get the bigger fight with Kell Brook, Jesse Vargas, to pursue Danny Garcia, or to pursue a bigger name, Josito Lopez? That doesn't make sense from a business perspective. So shout out to Errol Spence. He's trying to, and the same thing with, you look at Spence versus Triple G. Spence says he wants to get the belts, right? And then people have no problem when Golovkin stays in a very lackluster division at 160. There are some people ducking him, but the division is not swimming with talent like welterweight is. And if anyone wants to argue that, then you really don't know shit about a boxing. I'm not going to waste my time. But Errol Spence is in a stacked division, said he wants to collect all the belts, so you can't fault him. Say, oh, he needs to move up to 54, or why doesn't he fight Danny Garcia? He's in line to fight. Well, I mean, it doesn't even make business sense. Why would you fight this guy when you could fight, when you're already in line to, it's like switching jobs when you're already in line to get a promotion that you want and then make the type of money that you want to make at the current job, and you've already been there and you already have like residency and you already have some seniority there and you already know everybody. You already know you're going to switch to a whole new career field because you don't want to wait for the new pay period to get your raise. Like, it doesn't make sense. Kell Brook, Jesse Vargas, that's a good fight, and he's in line to fight the winner. So it could have been Ponomarev. They stepped out, and now it's going to be Bundu, it looks like, unless Bundu doesn't want the fight, which, I mean, at this point, it wouldn't surprise me because a lot of people don't seem to want it with Errol Spence. And he even said that when I interviewed him. He said, yeah, I'm avoid it. I mean, it is what it is. So as far as the fight breakdown, I would favor Errol Spence, obviously, but Leonard Bundu's tricky. Keith Thurman, some people, this is where you got to respect and understand and study the sport. It's not just about big names, because you look at that Keith Thurman fight. Keith Thurman was the Errol Spence Jr. at that time. And what I mean by that, he was the guy knocking people out. He was the guy in the division making a lot of noise and like still didn't have the resume, but he was looking real good. And then he fought Bundu, and the guy he hurt very bad in the first round, and the guy was able to survive and go the distance. And Keith Thurman, out of all of his performances recently, he didn't look as great versus Leonard Bundu because he was switch hitting, going from southpaw to orthodox and stuff. He knows how to survive. The fight, to me, with Keith Thurman and Bundu, it was pretty boring. And I'm not one of those people that just say, oh, this person ran or this was boring. I don't call like Rigondeaux and everything boring. Rigondeaux's last fight was boring to me on the Canelo Cotto undercard. I keep it real. That's basically what it is. The Bundu fight was boring because you could tell Bundu he wasn't going for his. He was kind of tricky enough to survive, but he was clearly losing. And it was just like pulling the dagger out slow, kind of. He wasn't doing what it would take to win the fight. And then Keith Thurman wasn't becoming more aggressive. So based on that formula, it just wasn't that great of a fight. But this is a good fight for Errol Spence Jr. based on it being a barometer test. Because if Errol Spence went in there and knocked out Leonard Bundu, who's always in shape, he's an Olympian, and clearly, like I just said, knows how to survive because he was badly hurt in the very first round, and he took Keith Thurman the distance, another massive puncher at welterweight. Then if Errol Spence goes in there and does what he did with the Chris Algieri, that's impressive because Chris Algieri, another person who's always in phenomenal shape, he's a nutritionist, and other people with bigger names than Errol Spence were not able to do that. Manny Pacquiao, Ruslan Provodnikov, Amir Khan, guys with power and tons of experience, silver medals and all types of shit. They weren't able to stop Chris Algieri, and Errol Spence Jr. did. So if Spence went in there and stopped Bundu, I would be impressed by that. I would clearly favor him to win, but it could be a tricky fight because Bundu is crafty and he's 40 years old, 40 plus, in shape, and knows how to survive. So it is what it is. You can critique the fight all you want, but the main message of what I'm saying is you can't fault Errol Spence for fighting the next guy in line, because he could have, if you didn't want to see him fight a 40-year-old, then he could have fought a guy who's in his 20s and undefeated, and Bundu only has one loss, but he could have been fighting a younger undefeated fighter in Konstantin Ponomarev, who's with Top Rank, but that side opted not to partake in it. So it's not Errol Spence's problem. He's not going to derail his whole plans based on this guy. You know what I mean? These guys are fighters for the most part. They don't care who's next. That's how and I really get the inkling from talking to Errol Spence directly that he definitely don't care. You know what I'm saying? If he's willing to fight Brooke, Vargas winner, and Porter Thurman, and go up to 55 to fight Canelo, then I really don't think he cares about fighting Konstantin Ponomarev or Leonard Bundu. You know what I'm saying? So he just wants who's next in line, man down. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like my video as always. Hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video's Ego signing off. You don't feel it, then it must be too real to touch. You'll never in your life try to knock the truth. The illest shit ever. Get ready, cause this is about to get heavy. Trying to keep me out, trying to censor what I say, cause they don't like what I'm talking about. So what's wrong with the media today? Prove I'm lying if I ain't correct. So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxing Ego, the future of boxing.